kitchen smelled of burnt toast and stale coffee. I stood at the counter, watching the steam rise from my mug while my wife sat at the table, her phone glowing in her hands. Her thumb scrolled in quick, nervous flicks, the way it always did when she was messaging him. When I walked by, her shoulders stiffened. The screen tilted away just enough that I couldn't see, but not so much that it would be obvious. A practiced move, one she'd perfected over months. I didn't say anything. I never did. For our boys' sake. That's what I told myself every goddamn morning. 6 months of this, of her coming home late with excuses that didn't quite add up, of her perfume lingering when she swore she hadn't worn any. Our house was clean, the dishes put away, the floors swept. But it wasn't a home anymore. It was just a place we moved through, careful not to touch. In the living room, our son sat on the carpet, stacking blocks into a lopsided tower. He giggled when it toppled, then started again, blissfully unaware. I leaned against the doorway, watching him. His joy was the only thing that still felt real, the only thing worth holding on to. My wife's chair scraped against the floor as she stood. She didn't look at me when she walked past, just grabbed her keys off the hook. "Meeting a friend for coffee," she said, already halfway out the door. I nodded like I believed her. Like I hadn't seen the texts, like my chest wasn't a fist of anger and shame. Silence had been my choice, my punishment, but silence has a limit, and mine was running out. The balloons fought me the whole damn morning. I blew up a dozen before realizing I'd forgotten to tie them. They zipped around the kitchen like panicked birds, bouncing off cabinets before landing limply on the floor. My son Jake shrieked with laughter as he chased them. "Careful," I muttered, catching one before it hit a lit candle. "We don't need the fire department showing up before the guests." Jake grinned up at me, cheeks flushed. "Can I pop one?" After the party. My wife Sarah breezed in, arms full of grocery bags. She set them down without looking at me. "Did you get the ice?" "Freezer's packed." She nodded, already moving past me to check the fridge. Her hair was pulled back in that messy bun she only wore when she was stressed, or lying. I forced myself to focus on the cake, store-bought, but I'd added the sprinkles myself, spelling out Happy 6th Birthday Jake in wobbly letters. The J looked more like a drunken T, but Jake wouldn't care. Sarah's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, then quickly tucked it into her back pocket. "Who's coming again?" I asked, too casually. She didn't pause while arranging chips in a bowl. "Just family. The Millers. Some kids from his soccer team." "And?" Her hand stilled for half a second. "What?" "Just making sure I didn't forget anyone." She exhaled through her nose. That's everyone. I watched her profile, the tightness around her eyes, the way she chewed the inside of her cheek. She used to be a terrible liar. Now she was just careful. Jake tugged at my shirt. "Daddy, can we play pin the tail on the donkey first?" "Sure, buddy." I ruffled his hair. "Whatever you want." Sarah's phone buzzed again. This time she ignored it. I turned back to the cake, pressing my thumb into the frosting to smooth out a lump. This day was for Jake. Not for her. Not for whatever game she was playing. The doorbell rang. Sarah wiped her hands on a towel. "That's probably your mom." I checked the clock. 1:58 p.m. guests arriving early. Then I heard it. A deep laugh from the front porch. A man's voice saying, "Hope we're not too early." Sarah froze. The balloon in my chest stretched thinner. I walked to the door. The front door swung open before I could reach it. My mother stood there, arms already wide for a hug. "Happy birthday to my favorite grandson," she announced, sweeping past me to scoop up Jake. Over her shoulder, I saw them. Sarah stood frozen in the hallway, a plastic cup dangling from her fingers. Her lips parted slightly, that telltale sign of panic she'd never learned to control. Behind my mother, a man I didn't recognize was crouching to Jake's eye level, holding out a brightly wrapped present. "Hey, buddy," he said in a voice too warm for a stranger. "Heard it's your big day." Jake, ever trusting, reached for the gift. "Thanks, mister." The man laughed, ruffling Jake's hair like he'd done it 100 times before. That's when I noticed his hand, a silver watch glinting at his wrist, the same make Sarah had surprised me with last Christmas, the one I'd found in her glove compartment 2 months later, still in its box. My mother turned. finally noticing the tension. "Oh, Sarah, your friend was just arriving as we pulled up." Her smile faltered as she looked between us. "You two know each other, right?" Sarah moved like someone walking on ice. "This is Mark, from work." Mark stood, extending his hand to me with the easy confidence of a man who didn't fear what I might do. Up close, I recognized him. The sharp jawline from Sarah's locked phone background, the broad shoulders from gym selfies she'd sworn were just inspiration for her own workouts. "Happy birthday to your boy," he said, grip firm. Sarah's told me so much about him. The balloon in my chest stretched tighter. I counted the ways this was wrong. The way his other hand rested on the small of Sarah's back as he stepped inside. The way she didn't flinch away. The way my mother's eyes darted between us, her smile growing strained. Jake broke the silence by tearing into Mark's gift. "A dinosaur excavating kit. Look, Dad." He held up the box triumphantly. "Wow," I managed. "That's really something." Mark grinned. Sarah mentioned he loves paleontology. The casual intimacy of that statement hung in the air. I watched Sarah's throat move as she swallowed. She'd shared our son's passions with this man, in the stolen moments between whatever else they'd been doing. More guests arrived then. Neighbors, Jake's friends from school, flooding the house with noise and movement. But everything felt distant, like I was watching through thick glass. I mechanically handed out drinks, accepted compliments on the cake, all while tracking Sarah and Mark's orbit around each other. At one point, I turned from the cooler to see Mark whispering something in Sarah's ear. Her responding laugh was too loud, too bright. When she reached up to adjust his collar, her fingers lingered just a second too long. That's when I noticed Jake watching them too, his small forehead wrinkled in confusion. He looked up at me, then back at the two adults who stood just a little too close together. "Daddy?" he asked. "Why is that man touching Mommy like that?" The balloon popped. The plastic cup cracked in my hand, sending a trickle of soda down my wrist. Jake's innocent question hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot. Around us, the party chatter continued. Oblivious adults sipping drinks, kids shrieking over "Pin the tail on the donkey," while my world narrowed to that single moment. Sarah's face went sheet white. Mark took a half step back, his confident smile slipping just enough that I saw the first flicker of unease. "Like what, buddy?" I asked, keeping my voice carefully neutral even as my pulse hammered in my temples. Jake mimed the gesture, small fingers brushing his own shoulder. "He keeps doing that, and Mommy laughs different." Sarah moved like someone waking from a trance. "Sweetheart, that's just how friends—" Mark was just leaving. I cut in, staring directly at him now. The room's temperature seemed to drop several degrees. My mother appeared at my elbow, her hand light but insistent on my arm. "Let's get more ice," she murmured, the warning clear in her tone. "For Jake's sake. Always for Jake's sake." Mark cleared his throat, that practiced charm sliding back into place. "Actually, I should—" "Stay for cake," Jake interrupted, grabbing Mark's hand with the fearless trust of childhood. "Daddy made it special." The silence that followed was absolute. Every adult in the room suddenly found reasons not to look at anyone else. Sarah's mouth opened and closed like a fish pulled from water. I knelt to Jake's level, my knees popping in a way that would have been comical any other day. "You're right, buddy. Guests should stay for cake." I met Mark's eyes over Jake's head. All guests. The tension could have been sliced with the plastic knife next to the cake. As I stood, I noticed Sarah's hands trembling as she rearranged already perfect napkins. Mark adjusted his collar in a gesture that looked suspiciously like wiping sweat from his neck. My mother saved the moment by clapping her hands. "Who wants to see the birthday boy blow out his candles?" The children's cheers covered the adults' collective exhale. As the crowd moved toward the cake table, Mark leaned close enough for me to catch his cologne, something expensive and woodsy that I'd never wear. "Listen, man, I think there's been some— 6 candles," I interrupted, lighting each one with deliberate care. 6 years I've been that boy's father. You've been here what? 6 minutes? I blew out the match, the sulfur smell sharp between us. "Don't min me." The cake cutting passed in a blur of forced smiles and off-key singing. I watched Sarah watch Mark watch Jake, the unspoken dynamic playing out like some terrible stage drama. When Mark accidentally received the first slice, the one with the birthday boy's name, Sarah's flinch told me everything I needed to know. As I handed out plates, my fingers left slight dents in the frosting. The sweet vanilla smell turned cloying. Somewhere between Make-A-Wish and the first bite, I realized this wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was war. The party noise swelled around me, kids laughing, adults making small talk. But all I could hear was the blood pounding in my ears. I watched from the kitchen as Mark knelt beside Jake, showing him how to properly excavate a plastic dinosaur bone. Sarah hovered nearby, her smile too bright, her fingers twitching toward Mark's shoulder before she caught herself. My mother appeared at my side, handing me a beer I didn't want. "You're gripping that plate hard enough to crack it," she murmured. I set it down. "I'm fine." She gave me a look that said she'd known I was lying since I was 5. "For Jake's sake," she said quietly. I nodded, jaw clenched. Then I saw it. Mark leaning in, whispering something to Sarah. Her laughter, soft and familiar, the way she used to laugh at my jokes. And then, the final straw, his hand, resting casually on the small of her back as he reached past her for a napkin. Something inside me snapped. I crossed the room in 5 strides. "We need to talk," I said, my voice low. "Now." Sarah's smile faltered. "Can it wait?" "No." I didn't wait for her to follow. I walked straight out the back door, the screen slamming behind me. The late afternoon sun glared down, hot and judgmental. She stepped outside a moment later, arms crossed. "What's your problem?" "My problem?" I let out a sharp laugh. "You brought him here, to our son's birthday." Her face flushed. "He's just a friend." "Bullshit." The word came out like a bullet. "I've seen the texts, the late nights, the watch." Her breath hitched. "You went through my things." "I didn't have to." "You weren't careful." For a second, she looked cornered. Then her expression hardened. "You're making a scene at Jake's party. You made the scene when you walked in holding his hand." Her mouth opened, then closed. The truth hung between us, ugly and undeniable. Inside, the music still played. Jake's laughter floated through the screen door. Sarah turned away. "I'm not doing this now." She walked back inside, leaving me standing there, fists clenched, the weight of everything unsaid crushing me. The party went on, but something had broken, and I wasn't sure it could be fixed. The remaining guests left in hurried clusters, making excuses about early dinners and forgotten appointments. I stood by the door like a ghost, mechanically thanking each one while watching Sarah from the corner of my eye. She laughed too loudly at something Mark said, her fingers brushing his forearm as she took his empty plate. Jake tugged at my shirt sleeve. "Daddy, why's everyone leaving?" His lower lip trembled. "We didn't even play musical chairs yet." I knelt down, my knees protesting against the hardwood. "They're just tired, buddy." The lie tasted like ash. "How about we save the games for next weekend? Just you and me." Mark chose that moment to walk by, his expensive cologne trailing behind him. "Great party, champ," he said, ruffling Jake's hair. My son instinctively leaned away, looking up at me with confused eyes. Sarah appeared at Mark's elbow. "I'll walk you out," she said, her voice pitched too high. They moved toward the front door together, their bodies angled toward each other like magnets. I turned Jake toward the kitchen. "Why don't you help Grandma with the leftover cake?" As soon as he was out of earshot, I crossed the living room in 3 strides. Sarah was standing on the porch, watching Mark's taillights disappear down the street. The late afternoon sun painted her face in golden light, making her look like a stranger. "You humiliated me in front of our friends," she hissed the moment she saw me. I barked out a laugh. "I humiliated you?" My voice dropped to a whisper. "You brought your boyfriend to our son's birthday party." Her face went pale. "It's not like that." "Then what's it like, Sarah?" I stepped closer, my pulse roaring in my ears. "Because from where I'm standing, you just showed everyone exactly who matters to you, and it's not us." Inside, Jake's sudden laughter rang out, followed by my mother's muffled response. The normalcy of the sound made my chest ache. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself. "We'll talk about this later." "No." I blocked her path back inside. "We'll talk about this now." Or so help me God, Daddy? Jake's small voice came from behind me. I turned to see him holding a smashed piece of cake in his hands. Chocolate frosting smeared across his shirt. I dropped it, he whispered, his eyes filling with tears. Sarah pushed past me. It's okay, baby, she murmured, gathering him into her arms. Over his shoulder, her eyes met mine. The war wasn't over, but this battle, I'd lost. The house fell silent after the last guest left. Balloons sagged against the walls, their bright colors fading in the dim evening light. I stood at the kitchen sink, scrubbing frosting off a plate with unnecessary force. Sarah moved through the rooms like a ghost, collecting discarded cups and napkins. We hadn't spoken since the confrontation. The air between us was thick with everything left unsaid. Jake sat at the table, quietly assembling his new dinosaur kit. His small hands moved carefully, but his eyes kept flicking between us, sensing the storm beneath the silence. You okay, buddy? I asked, drying my hands. He nodded, but his lower lip trembled. Did I do something wrong? My chest tightened. Number and never. I crouched beside him. Today was perfect. Sarah paused in the doorway, her arms full of trash. For a second, her mask slipped, regret, guilt, exhaustion flashing across her face. Then she turned away. I tucked Jake into bed later, smoothing his hair back as he clutched his favorite stuffed dinosaur. Will Mark come to my next birthday? He asked sleepily. The question hit me like a punch. I don't know, buddy. Downstairs, Sarah sat on the couch, staring at her phone. The screen lit up her hollow expression. I walked past her without a word, out to the back porch. The night air was cool, the stars sharp and indifferent above me. Inside, a door clicked shut. A lock turned. I exhaled long and slow, watching my breath fog in the dark. Tomorrow things would change. Tonight, I just let the silence win. Dawn found me still on the porch, the first cigarette I'd smoked in years burning between my fingers. The ashtray overflowed with crushed butts and bitter realizations. Sarah's shadow appeared in the doorway. She hugged herself against the morning chill, her eyes red-rimmed. We need to talk, she said, voice raw. I stubbed out the cigarette. You're right. We do. She flinched at my tone. I never meant to fuck another man, to bring him into our home, to let our son see. Each word landed like a hammer blow. Which part wasn't intentional, Sarah? Her face crumpled. It just happened. I barked a laugh that hurt my throat. Affairs don't happen. They're built, one lie at a time. The back door creaked open. Jake stood there in dinosaur pajamas, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Why are you yelling? Sarah moved first, scooping him up. No one's yelling, baby. Daddy just has a cough. I watched her soothe him, this woman who'd been my whole world, the same hands that had touched another man, now wiping our son's tears. Playroom, I told Jake, forcing a smile. Daddy needs coffee. When he was gone, Sarah turned to me. What now? I studied the wedding band still on my finger. The answer came surprisingly clear. Now you leave. Today? I met her shocked gaze. You don't get to destroy us and stay. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The truth finally was louder than her lies. Inside, Jake's laughter floated down the hallway. The sound anchored me as I walked past her into the kitchen. The coffee machine gurgled to life. Outside, birds sang. Somewhere, a car door slammed. Life went on. Just not ours. Not together.